Widdersheim is the Deputy Washington Director at Human Rights Watch, and she was also with the National Security Council covering the Sudan and Central Africa. Nicole, good to have you. So we want to get
Thank you.
your take on this latest supposed 7-day truce now.
Yes, I mean, this is hopeful news, but we would have to say that what we've seen in the last couple of days, that airstrikes have been increasing in Khartoum. There's more militia on the street in Khartoum. So perhaps they were preparing to ramp up and get the most activity and secure the most territory before this announcement. It's not clear. It's also not clear if they're actually headed into political negotiations and true dialogue, or they're just agreeing to a truce that allows for humanitarian aid, which would be great because it's definitely needed. It's really unclear the terms of what's happening and also how that relates to the fact that we've seen more airstrikes.
Yeah, so you have the military itself, and then you have this very powerful paramilitary, the RSF, that was essentially in an agreement for a long time with the military. And so many have said that this is a problem that was always going to come to a head. When you have these two groups that have their differences operating this way, and that these problems were unresolved for a very long time. So why is that?
Yeah, I mean, it was not a secret that both militaries, and in particular this militia that's not officially the army of Sudan, has been building up its forces, its ranks, its weaponry for the last 2 years, while also saying to the international community, and most importantly to the Sudanese civilians, they're ready for a transition to civilian power. They were agreeing on paper and in rhetoric that they will be subsumed into the Sudanese armed forces, all the while building their ranks, buying more weaponry, and really clearly preparing for war that has been now going on for 14 days. So there wasn't a secret, and there's a lot of questions that need to be answered as to why the international guarantors of the process didn't fail to even stem the flow of weapons into Sudan, or at least question what was happening.
Very good point. So once this is over, whenever it is, what does this mean for the transition to democracy? I guess you could say that these two groups are finally having it out now. As we mentioned, some have said this was always going to come to this head. But unfortunately, those most affected by it are these civilians.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what's clear is that the civilian led transition, the civilian movement, excuse me, that first put democracy on the table 4 years ago, they were never at the center of this process. Their demands weren't met. One would question if they were even heard. And so we are really calling for a renewed and frankly a new policy by the international community that puts the civilians' demands first and puts these warring actors and their seemingly fight to the death. I don't know what's going to happen, but not at the forefront of what Sudan needs. Sudan needs a democratic, civilian-led government, and there was a process that apparently didn't fail to achieve those goals. And so, yes, no one knows what's going to happen. First and foremost, we have to get humanitarian assistance into the country. People who are trying to flee the violence should be allowed to leave. And then we need to move back to a new policy that puts the civilians front and center and truly gets this country on the track to civilian-led government.
All right, Nicole Widdersheim, great to have your insights on the show. Thanks so much.
Thanks for covering the story.